Welcome everyone to the Food Bank Tableau User Group. Very excited for today. We have another wonderful speaker with a great topic. Fun with formatting. Tab Maier has been gracious enough to present. She's done an amazing job of putting together some really great tips and resources that I will get into in just a few moments. Pretty basic agenda today. Quick note, this session is being recorded, and we'll do a welcome and then a little bit about us as the group in case you're new, a quick announcement, and then we'll get into our keynote with Tab. I'm Caleb with Feeding the Gulf Coast in Thema, and our co-host Tammy Jackson for the Tableau User Group is in Georgia. Feel free to reach out to us anytime if you have questions or ideas or feedback. Speaking of questions and ideas and feedback, we have a dedicated Slack community for all of us to stay connected with each other. There's different channels for various topics. It's a great way to learn, ask questions, get ideas, sharing knowledge, best practices, things like this. Of course, our Tableau user group, we meet roughly quarterly, once per quarter usually, but in between those meetings, we can stay in touch in the Slack community. So that QR code in the bottom corner should take you to the Slack group, or just reach out afterwards. I can send you a link as well. If you're interested in presenting on something, we would absolutely love that. Tammy and I were talking recently about she had a great idea for something, but it's going to require some feedback from all of you to see what you're doing with Tableau specifically for a use case we have an idea for. But if you have anything else that you'd like to discuss, please reach out. We'd love to have you present, and we can work with you on that, make it really fun and easy. So yeah, send me a message in Slack, or my email is there as well. The quick announcement is this: another Slack community. I'm a huge fan of Slack, in case you can't tell. Tableau recently started this Slack community for anybody in the data fam. So this has thousands of members already, and again, it's just a great way to connect, learn from other Tableau users across the world in a wide range of industries. So that QR code will take you to that as well. And that's all I have. Right now, we're going to turn it over to Tab Maier with Fun with Formatting. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing Tab, which should give you permission to do so. And take it
Great,
away.
thank you. And thanks that piece about that Slack channel, the Tableau community one, that wasn't on my radar, but maybe that's something I will look into, because it's just nice to connect with people and share learning resources and all that good stuff. Um, Tammy lost audio, but can other people still hear me? Hopefully. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
good. Okay. I was about to panic. I'm excited, but very nervous, but also excited. So thank you all for having me today. My name's Tab Maier, and I'm really excited to present to you guys about formatting in Tableau. Just a little bit of background about me first. I've been working in Tableau for about 6 years. I think it'll technically be my Tableau anniversary next month, but that's pretty cool. I learned the basics on the job, just working on dashboards for different kinds of financial reporting and things like that. But um, I really liked the tool. I liked how neat it seems in terms of being able to customize things and build very creative dashboards. And so I spent some time on my own, also working on building skills through like the different Tableau free training videos and looking at people's blogs, and especially doing some of the Tableau community uh, challenges. My favorite being Workout Wednesday. If you haven't checked that out, it's a great way to practice skills, learn new skills, learn about new features that are released, and practice them. It's just great. Data analytics and visualization in Tableau, hopefully you picked this up, is a big passion of mine. Um, And one of the things that I like to do now that I feel pretty comfortable with the tool is help other people build skills. I've been very fortunate, I think, in the past that I've gotten to mentor some interns and help them upskill, and that feels pretty good. And I like watching other people grow as analysts too. I think Tableau is a really great skill to have if you're entering the job market or you're looking to explore your options, and it's a great thing to really like hone your skills in if you want to be like a strong analyst. Another thing that I really enjoy is volunteering and giving back to the community. Um, which in a second I'll explain why I'm so excited to be here. But prior to the pandemic, I lived in St. Petersburg, Florida for several years and got to be a part of that community through volunteering with different organizations. One of the ones I spent a good amount of time with was Feeding Tampa Bay, which I believe is part of your network. Um, they had so many different things that people could get involved in, and I really liked the sorting and packing, maybe just because I like organizing things, but the sorting and packing at the warehouse and following Hurricane Irma, there were a couple different events like packing maybe FEMA donations, and there were some mobile pantry opportunities that were pretty neat. And also getting involved serving meals at Trinity Cafe, which is I think still part of their their bigger their bigger brand, I guess. Um, but yeah, like I said, I did some of those things, and I think I got a decent idea about how food banks operate and help the communities and distribute food and collect the donations and things like that. And I thought that was really interesting. One of the things that I've been curious about for a while is just kind of what happens behind the scenes to make that all happen. Like who coordinates things, how do things get organized, who's tracking things, like all the things that happen behind the scenes to make it work. When I saw this group form last year, I was pretty excited because I thought maybe this would be like attending the meetings would be a good way to gain some insight into the kinds of data people have or the kinds of problems that come up and the questions you're trying to answer and things like that. So I was pretty excited to see this group form. And one of the things I really wanted to do was get involved, and if I could, because for me this is a pretty unique and exciting opportunity. um, it combines two things that I really enjoy doing, which is helping people in the community and then also focusing on data analytics and data visualization in my favorite tool, which is Tableau. So I think this is a really unique and interesting opportunity, and I'm very grateful that you guys invited me to give a presentation today. Um, so before we get into the formatting, I wanted to do a quick tour of Tableau Public because I think it's a really great resource, and I like to give people kind of like the tools to learn more on their own, right? Introduce people to things they might not know a lot about, so they can keep exploring and learning on their own. Um, Self-learning is good. So let me share my screen here. This might take me a second to get this how I wanted to do it. Um, let's see. Let's do this one. Okay, great. So hopefully you can see my screen, which is like the homepage for Tableau Public. For those of you who don't know, Tableau Public provides some pretty neat things for anybody who wants to learn more about Tableau. One of the things that's really nice is that you can actually download free version of the software. There are some limitations about like what you can do and where you can publish, and you should not use private data for Tableau Public. But it's a really nice thing to think about, particularly for people who want to learn the tool but maybe don't have access through like a work license or something like that. So if you have anybody in your circle who may be like an aspiring data analyst, you can point them to Tableau Public so they can get a free download of the tool and work on building skills. Um, there's also some neat stuff in here in terms of what you can find in the Learn section. There's some how-to videos for just building basic skills, connecting your data to Tableau, building different kinds of visualizations and things like that. So this is a nice place to learn. If you want to start building dashboards, you need data, right? And so sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge to find good data to work with. Hopefully, you guys know that when you have like your Tableau, either at desktop or maybe cloud, you have that sample superstore data and maybe the world indicators data. I think they come like with your Tableau instance, but there's all kinds of other sample data in here as well that you can work with. I think it's broken out kind of like into different groups based on maybe what you're interested in exploring. But that kind of takes the work out of finding a data set potentially when you want to start getting creative and building things. And then the last piece of this that I think is pretty nice is the community resources. So Caleb mentioned earlier that there's a Slack for the Tableau community, and there's a lot of other things that the Tableau community offers as well. I've never experienced something like this with any other kind of tool that I've used in my career journey, but it's really neat that there's so many people out there using the tool and willing to share their expertise and sharing kind of like the dashboards they make when they kind of push the limits of the tool or combine like analytics with maybe like a more creative, artistic kind of vibe. But there's a lot of great things in here too if you want to learn more about what people are doing or how you can find support. There's the community projects, which I think are great. They're great for upskilling. They're great for learning new things. Workout Wednesday, I believe, is one of them, and that's really kind of what I have a big passion for. There's the blog, there's community forums, and then there's the Tableau user groups, which hopefully you guys are familiar with at this point because you are in a meeting for a Tableau user group. Um, Let me switch what I'm sharing real quick and show you a couple things that might be of interest. So from that main page that I was on, if you scroll down a bit, you could see things like Viz of the Day and featured offers, or sorry, authors, not offers. But there's also like groups of dashboards that you can look at for inspiration. And one of the ones I thought might be interesting for this group in particular is the collection of dashboards that fall under like nonprofits and foundations. There's also like a section that has business dashboards, so that might be a good way to get some inspiration for designs as well. But I think it's nice because you can check out what other people are doing, maybe what kind of KPIs they're looking at, or how they're visualizing these KPIs, trends over time, all kinds of things like that. I know for me, when I was getting started, is a little bit overwhelming because there's just so many things you could do in Tableau, and I wasn't sure where to focus first. I think Tableau Public is a really great place to come get some inspiration and see what people are doing. So maybe you can figure out where you want to focus your energy as you're learning or working on building your skills. The last thing I want to share from here for now, I think, is, let me pick this one. Okay. Well, I guess we'll go back real quick. Okay, so the other neat thing about Tableau Public is that you can actually set up a profile on here, which I have done. And it's a really great place to like build a portfolio or practice things and share them with others and get feedback from people in the community. When you publish your vizzes on here, you can decide whether you want to share them publicly or you want to keep them hidden in case maybe you're working on something that's not quite finished yet. This is really nice because as you go through other people's work on Tableau Public, you can click these little star icons on their dashboards, and then you can add them to your favorites, which it's always nice to add things to favorites so you can find them really easily when you want to refer back to them. And you can also follow different authors on Tableau Public, so you can see like people who make things that are interesting to you, like you can get updates when they publish new things as well. So one of the reasons I really wanted to come here was not to just like advertise my profile, but I wanted to point you to the dashboards we'd be working from for today's presentation. A lot of this presentation is really a live demo, and I didn't want anybody to be like stressed about like I need to take notes or are there slides or anything like that. So I just wanted to point you guys to the dashboards we'll be using for this demo. I don't think we'll have enough time to get through all the tabs, but that's completely fine because everything is here for reference. And there's one other thing I wanted to show you guys on here that is relatively new and pretty interesting, I think. So I clicked on the favorite tips and tricks from Tableau Conference 2024, which honestly, I can't believe today is June 12th, 2025. A year went by very fast. But when you come to people's dashboards, you may have the option to click this button here. So there's a button that authors can add to their Tableau public profile that allows you to ask them about their viz. I imagine some people have this enabled and others don't because if you're really big in the community, maybe you would just get overwhelmed by the emails. I'm not there yet, so I have it enabled on my profile. But should you have any questions about anything we cover today in this presentation or anything that we don't get to covering in this presentation, please feel free to come to this favorite tips and tricks workbook and submit a question through this Ask Me About My Viz button. What this will do is it'll send me an email with a link to the dashboards that you are asking about, and you can put in your question, and then that will open up an opportunity to have like a back and forth and hopefully get your questions answered. Um, so with that said, just want to remind you guys one more time that we'll be working from this favorite tips and tricks um, dashboard on my Tableau public profile. You're always welcome to revisit this later. You can actually download a copy of this into Tableau Desktop if you want to kind of poke through things on your own or things like that. But that's where we're going to start the presentation today. So I'm going to need to switch my sharing one more time and open up Tableau for you guys. Screen 2. Okay. So I love that we have this meeting today to talk about formatting because formatting is really important. It's powerful and it's definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked when you're working in Tableau. I think a lot of the default formatting is pretty great, but if you start making adjustments, it's neat because you can kind of customize or personalize or add style to your dashboards. Maybe there's like a particular color palette your organization encourages you to use, and you can go through and apply that. One of the other nice things about formatting is that it helps you provide clarity in what you're trying to express and may help you guide your end users as they navigate your dashboards and help them kind of pick out the main points that should be emphasized when they're looking through the data. So with that, I guess we will get into the demo. One last thing about this is that I pulled a lot of these tips and tricks from the Tableau conference in 2024. What's really neat about the Tableau conference in the past bunch of years is that they provide a lot of the sessions recorded and they're available on demand on Salesforce Plus. And so I'd originally linked in all the Salesforce Plus links because I wanted to be able to reference them in the future. And anybody who reviewed these, I wanted them to be able to watch the full presentation that included these tips as well. Um, I checked through these last week, my Salesforce Plus links, and I'm not sure what happened. I can't seem to find the videos on there anymore, but thankfully, many of these sessions are also recorded and shared on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch any of these sessions in full, um, most of them here have on the resources updated in 2025 tab, they have the link to the YouTube recording of the sessions. So now we can get into formatting. Okay. So there's a lot of things that come up, I think, when you're working with data, and sometimes maybe your data comes in the format that you want it to use it in, and sometimes you have to do a little bit more work to get things to display the way that makes the most sense for you or your end user. So for most of these dashboards, I use the sample Superstore data that comes I think with your Tableau install and is pretty popular just for like Tableau training videos and things. I chose that because it's pretty easy to work with. It's a relatively small data set, and hopefully some people have a bit of familiarity with it. So um, nobody's getting like super distracted by the numbers, we can continue to focus on the bigger ideas and the topics that we're trying to talk through today. But when you work through the sample superstore data, one of the calculations they usually encourage you to create, like as a calculated field, is the profit ratio. I did this 2 different ways, and it's really for demo purposes in terms of the formatting. But if we look in the upper right here, profit ratio 1 is the sum of the profit over the sum of the sales, which I think is how we generally work with this. And then for demo purposes, just to show you some of the custom formatting tricks, I recreated that calculation, but just multiplied it by 100. So you see that in this top table, when they display, the only difference here, right, is where the decimal place is, um, since we had multiplied it by 100 in the second example. And what we want to achieve in this second table on the bottom with the formatted percentages is making sure that this really displays as a percentage. And what we need to do here in the first instance in profit ratio 1 is we probably want to move the decimal place over by 2 and add the percent symbol. And in the second one, profit ratio 2, we can see that we already have the decimal place where we want it, but we still need to figure out how to get the percent sign on there so it displays as a percentage. So maybe you skipped ahead and read along the notes here, which is fine. I leave myself notes so I don't forget things too. And hopefully people understand the things that are written. It looks like they've gotten cut off a little bit on the bottom. I think that's because I have my monitor at like 125%. But when you view these in the dashboards that are published or you download your own copy, if the text continues to be cut off, you can just increase the height of the dashboard so you can see the full text in here. But back to the formatting, right? We want to know how we can go ahead and format both profit ratio 1 and profit ratio 2 into percentages. So I'm going to navigate to the sheet, and we're going to look at the pills that we have here under measure values. So the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and right click on it, and I'm going to go to format for profit ratio 1. And we're in the pane tab, that's good. And we're looking at this piece with the numbers. So right now it looks like it's displayed as number custom with 4 decimal places. And if we had negative values here, they would just have the negative sign in front. We don't have any special units applied. We don't have a prefix or a suffix, and we want to include thousands as separators. I'll say there's a lot of options in here that you can modify. Um, Maybe at some point, if you haven't already, just stop and take a look at all these different things, because there's some good options in here that you may overlook in your daily work, but they might provide you a little bit more freedom and flexibility as you do um, your dashboarding work in the future. But what we want to do for the first profit ratio is come down here, instead of this number custom, change it to a percentage. And from here, the only option that we really have to format is the number of decimal places, which we can just adjust with the up-down arrows here. So I think as far as this one goes, this is looking pretty good. I think this looks like we wanted it to from the main dashboard tab. So that's great. But what are we going to do with profit ratio number 2? Okay, so if we come here and we try and do the same thing, right? We right click on the pill and then we go to format. We have number custom with 2 decimal places. We want to apply that same percentage trick here. That doesn't look so good because if you remember, we took the profit ratio 2 and multiplied it by 100. So this isn't going to work, right? The number is not displaying as we want, though it is nice because we have the percent symbol. So how can we kind of work around this? Let's go back to what we had in the custom number, right? So we have the number with the 2 decimal places, which is great. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, you might want to take a look at some point at the prefix and suffix area. This allows you to add some additional formatting, which in this case is particularly helpful because we can come in here and just add our percent symbol. And now profit ratio 1 and profit ratio 2. We've taken different steps to achieve the formatting, but we have them both formatted the same way, and they look like what we wanted to get in the second table on the bottom. So that's pretty neat. I struggled with some of these things for a while when I was a new Tableau user because I think there's just so many formatting options buried in so many different menus. But it was nice to kind of unlock that and know that that was a possibility to get into the formatting and really understand how you can do the different numbers. The second thing I want to talk about is adding a little bit more formatting to your metrics in a table. And so what we have here is from the sample superstore data. I just have a table that has the subcategories listed on the left and then the profit. And so each of these profit metrics, this is the original profit that comes in with the data, and the following three are just copies of that. So I didn't do anything to the calculated fields to like make anything interesting show up here. It's all in the formatting as well. So I think let's navigate to this sheet and poke around a little bit more to understand what we're doing as well. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. Things always behave weirdly when you're doing a live demo. But here we're gonna talk about a couple of different examples here. Oh, goodness. Let's see if we can keep going. Okay, so we have the original profit metric, and then let's say on here we kind of scan through the values in the profit column, and we see that there's a handful of negative values, but the most of them are positive. On the positive values, yep, you can do that. So we can go through in the same way that we did before, and we can go to the format, and we can go to the numbers. And if you do a little more exploring in this menu, you can go to the bottom and click Custom, and this allows you to do some modifications of how the numbers display. So it's a little bit small on this screen, but hopefully you can see here there's a semicolon. This first bunch of information in front of the semicolon is how we're going to uh, adjust the formatting for the positive numbers. The second, after the semicolon, the second bunch of information is how we're going to do the negative numbers. And if you were particular about how your zero values got formatted, you could add another semicolon and some extra information to format that as well. But we don't have any zero values here, so we're just going to focus on the positive and the negative. So the only thing that I did here, well, we'll talk about that in a second. The thing that I did here was really just adding this plus sign to the custom formatting. So if I take that out, you can see over here the plus signs went away. And if I add that back, we get that nice formatting with the plus and minus again. So that's pretty handy. And then profit up down is a little bit fancier, I think. I know in dashboards, people really like to use the up and down arrows to show positive or negative, increase and decrease. And a lot of the time when I was newer to Tableau, I made a separate calculated field, maybe with some logic saying if greater than zero, symbol up arrow, if less than zero, down arrow, and then you have like an additional field, maybe you drag on the text card or something to get the labels right. That's definitely fine if that's what you're doing, but you can save yourself a little bit extra work, I think, if you actually do the formatting um, like on the field like we're doing here. So we're also in that custom formatting, which is pretty nice. But instead of focusing on the plus and minus symbols here, you can actually copy and paste in those up-down Unicode symbols. And so that's how we get the up and down triangles on our profit up-down metric by just actually adjusting the settings for the field versus adding an additional calculated field just to get those arrows. So that's pretty neat as well. And then the last thing I wanted to point out here is that maybe you could think about this a little bit differently. So when we looked at this initial profit field, we know there's a handful of negative numbers in here, but sometimes when people are looking at text tables, like it's hard to pick them out right away. Like you're kind of scanning up and down the column and looking for the negative numbers. And so what if you thought about applying a different kind of formatting that would make it easier to pick out the negative numbers? This is definitely something you could do too, if it made sense for the data that you're working with, and you wanted to try this out and see how your end users like it, I guess. So what we did here in the formatting, again, did some adjustments to the custom formatting here, that last option in the list. I didn't make any changes to how the positive numbers display, right? That information before the semicolon, but the information after, which is how the negative numbers are displaying, I decided to just add this little dot character so that it displays in front of the number, and it's a little bit easier for the end user's eyes to pick out um, which are the negative values from this list of profit by subcategory. So I think that's pretty neat. I think getting used to this is a little bit tricky, but I would say there's maybe a little bit of a hack that I like when I'm trying to do some custom number formatting. So if you, for instance, we're back on that original profit one. Um, If you start with one of the custom items here, whether it's custom number or custom currency, so I moved it over to currency, and now we have 2 decimal places and the dollar symbol, which you see is applied in the prefix field. Very neat. If we come down here, so if we start from this currency custom option, and we come down to custom at the bottom, it already fills in a lot of this for us. So we know we want that dollar sign in front of the number. And then this is also saying that for the negative values, instead of putting the negative sign out front, you can go ahead and use the parentheses to display the negative numbers instead. I like kind of coming into these and using this as like a starting point for how I want to do the custom number formatting, so I don't have to like Google this or try and remember how the characters all fit in here or things like that when I want to do the application of custom formatting. So if you need a little bit of help getting started, I would say take your field, apply either the custom number formatting or the custom currency, and get yourself most of the way there, and then hop down to this custom option at the bottom, and then it already fills in a lot of this information for you, and you can modify it as you need to. Um, so that's pretty neat, I think. There's a lot of power in the custom formatting there. Another thing I wanted to demo for you guys, I learned this last year. I didn't know this was possible, but um, it's pretty great. You can actually use 2 different dimensions on the color field. I guess keeping in mind you need to make sure it's appropriate for your data and you have a good use case for doing that. Um, this is something that's possible. So in this chart here, still working with Sample Superstore, what I did was applied both the category and then the subcategory to the color field. So that way you see you can have like the furniture bar, and then you have each of these pieces broken out by subcategory, different colors for each subcategory, tables, furnishings, chairs, bookcases, and so on. And then we have like this orange range for office supplies and the green range for technology, which is pretty cool. So how do we do that? Because I really didn't know you could do this, but it's great if you have an appropriate use case. And now my Tableau is syncing. But there's 3 different ways to go about applying 2 dimensions on the colors in the marks card. And hopefully this finishes processing the request pretty quickly, and we can go through a quick demo of how you can do this. Ah, the unexpected error again. All right. Okay, so let's take one of these off to start with, because let's just start with something simple. So we have the category applied to the color. So we know that category is on the color because we can see this icon here with these 4 colorful dots next to the pill in the marks card, right? And we are thinking like, how about we go ahead and put the subcategory on the colors as well? Let me find, okay, subcategory under product. So this is nice. I think this works well for this particular data because with the category and the subcategory, you kind of have like a natural hierarchy. I'm not sure about other use cases for this, but this one works pretty well, I think. So let's just say first we want to take the subcategory and we want to add it to the color. So I'm going to do that for you real quick. So I'm going to take the field and just drop it on the color button on the marks card. And that didn't really do exactly what I wanted to, right? It Instead of applying it in addition, it just replaced the category with the subcategory. That's not quite what I want. So we'll go back and we'll try it again. So the first way we can go about having that second color on here is to actually take the subcategory and apply it to the detail. And then if we look over here, the icon next to subcategory is, I guess, kind of like a little tree diagram, but you can actually click on this and you get a list of the different items that show up in your marks card. So the color, the size, the label, and we can just click color on that. Right? So you kind of work around not being able to apply two things directly to the color by first adding it to the detail and then going ahead and changing how you want that field applied by using this little icon here. That's pretty neat. Our second option here, let's take these both off real quick. Our second option here is to hold the control key on your keyboard and select category and subcategory and drag them over at the same time and drop them on the color. And then you see here we have both of those fields again applied to the color, which is pretty nice. And then the last way we can go about this, we'll remove subcategory, is to hold, what do my notes say? The shift key, grab the subcategory and drag it over on the color. So instead of replacing the category, if you hold the shift key when you drag it over, it applies it in addition to the category and doesn't replace it, which I think is pretty neat. Like I said, I didn't know this was a possibility before I saw somebody demo this, but it's pretty neat. And I think this is going real fast. I think the last thing, or maybe the second to last thing, depending on how long this takes, that I want to kind of talk to you guys about is separate measures or separate measure colors when you're putting together something like a highlight table. So I think one of the things that's pretty cool about Tableau is, again, that it's very customizable and you can add a lot of color to kind of highlight the things you want your end users to notice immediately as they're scanning your dashboards and trying to understand the data you're presenting them. Um, One of the things that took me a while to figure out was actually this separate legends for the measures when you're creating a table like this. I think maybe figured out how to do this from one of the Workout Wednesday challenges, but this was presented, I believe, in the Tableau conference last year. So I kind of wanted to walk you guys through how you would do this and maybe the thought process for making like a very clear, uncluttered visualization to help guide your end user to the things that they need to understand on your visualization. So I went ahead and created, using the same data source, a table that talks about the subcategories, and then we have the three measures. We have sales, profit, and quantity on the table, and we want to look at kind of like the extremes, pick out maybe things that are on the low end or maybe the high end. So we're going to go in here and let me navigate to the sheet. Tableau will probably have to think about this again, but we'll all wait patiently. What we want to do on this table is apply some color instead of leaving it as like a plain table so that the color application can kind of guide the user's eye to see what we need to. You can do it, Tableau, to see what we need to look at here. And so the first thing I did with the way I have this set up is I went ahead and I took the measure values um, and just applied it to the color, which is what we have here. This is a good step in the right direction, but this probably isn't the finished product that we want. Because if we look at this, right, we have one legend that goes from like negative almost 18,000 up to 330,000. That's a pretty big range. And if you look at the way the color is applied on this table, it's not the best in terms of helping somebody understand what they're looking for. So sales, And it's a really kind of because of how we have these measures, right? So sales, a lot of the sales numbers are in the tens or hundreds of thousands. Profits tend to be in the tens of thousands, and then quantity is like in the hundreds or thousands. So they're not really, this one scale is not really appropriate for each of these metrics just because of kind of like the ranges for each of the metrics. So when we look at quantity, for example, to my eyes at least, that's very gray and you're not really able to pick much out of here. Um, so wouldn't it be cool if we could have separate legends for each of the metrics here? Well, that's actually something we can go ahead and do, and I'm going to show you how. So if we come over to what we have applied on the colors, which is the metrics value pill, if we click the down arrow on it, there's this option, it's the second one in the list, where it says you can actually use separate legends. So that's pretty neat. I was pretty sure for a long time that there was a way to do this, but it took me a while to find that option, um, which I'm glad I did. And now I can share it with you guys. So I'm not gonna click it on here because it'll kind of mess up the dashboard that I wanted to keep talking through. But you can take my word for it. If we click on use separate legends, it will indeed give us separate legends for sales, profit, and quantity, like we have here on the second piece of this dashboard. And so we can see that we have the sales legend, the profit, which goes from an orange to a blue since we have positive and negative values. And then we have a third legend that just applies to the quantity. You could go through and customize the different colors that are used for each of these simply by uh, edit colors. Like I clicked on my legend and clicked the down arrow and I picked edit colors. And right now it's just choosing something the automatic option for sales. But if I felt inspired, I could apply a purple. I like purple. Um, Still not really a great viz. It's maybe a little bit too colorful to be helpful and a little bit cluttered and might take your end user's brain a little bit of extra work to process this. So what if we decided that we just wanted to talk about the profit, or we really only wanted to apply the color to the profit because we want to see which subcategories are negative and be able to pick those out very easily. So we can take what we have here, right, with our separate legends for each metric, and we can clean it up a little bit. And so this is a pretty neat trick. I think hopefully somebody else can leverage this in their dashboard development, where we go ahead and we go back and we edit it. And from the list down for the palettes for the list that we have here, you actually pick custom diverging. That's the first part you need. And then if we check the box for stepped color and we say we only want 2 steps, right? We have like the low end and the high end. So what you can do here is you can come in where you see these boxes and you can click on them and actually come through here and pick a screen color. And so for both the bottom end of the range and the top end of the range, I'm just going to pick white, which is what I already did, for the sales and the quantity, and that cleans it up a bit more. So now we have, we're pretending that profit is the metric we really want to focus in on. We have the orange highlighting like the negative values and the darker orange for the more extreme negative value. And then we have like the different shades of blue to highlight the positive values with that 55, 618 being the darkest blue. So you can really process what's going on here, I think, a little bit better than if you had colors applied to sales and quantity as well. So that's pretty cool as far as formatting goes. Um, hmm, do we have time for maybe one more item?
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Okay.
You're great.
Thank you. Let me share. Okay, here we go. Um, so maybe we can squeeze in 2. But this is a little hack that I also discovered somehow that really comes in handy when you're doing formatting is the copy and paste formatting. So on this dashboard, I'm pointing to 2 different sheets. The top one has all kinds of wacky formatting applied. I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing this for your business dashboards, but I applied things that are hopefully kind of bright and obvious, so just for demonstration purposes, so we can see what happens here. So I have this first sheet that has all this wild formatting on it, and then I have this second sheet that doesn't really have anything on it. And if we were feeling really adventurous and we wanted to apply all these crazy colors to that second sheet, I could go through and click through all the different settings on the sheet and apply each formatting change individually, which may be a little bit tedious. Or I could right click on this tab and click copy formatting, come over to the second tab that's very plain at the moment. I can right click this one and say paste formatting. And just like that, all of my wild colors come in. And so that's a nice little way to work a little bit more efficiently when you want to apply formatting changes rather than going into each field that you've made adjustments to and like manually doing each one step by step. Um, if you don't mind, I wanted to talk a little bit for maybe like a minute or two, I think, about the Tableau conference this year. Um, there were many good sessions that can be viewed on Salesforce Plus this year. I think a couple of the things that I saw that were particularly interesting in the context of formatting was the Devs on Stage presentation. I don't believe it's available yet, but I think they said that in an upcoming version of Tableau, there will be a way to create your custom color palettes inside of Tableau versus having to kind of take those steps where you make modifications through like that preferences file through maybe like WordPad or Notepad. So that might save people a little bit of time once that feature is released. You can just create your custom color palettes inside of Tableau. I want to give a shout out to the Flurridge twins presentations. I'm a huge fan of theirs. I think pretty much everything they do is great, whether it's their Tableau conference presentations or their blog or the content they share maybe on LinkedIn. They're great. They're a great source of inspiration, and they're fantastic at helping people upskill and explaining kind of complicated things in simple ways. They also had some interesting topics that they covered in their presentation that are related to format. So they talked about new fonts that are Tableau safe, which I think means when you set them up in your dashboard and then you publish, everything looks as expected. Sometimes when you work on various things, or at least this has been my experience, when you work on things in Tableau, you get everything formatted just the way you want it, maybe in Tableau Desktop, and you push it to the server and just kind of tilt your head and realize these aren't the same. Something about publishing didn't quite go as expected, but they cover some interesting information about fonts that can be used, like new fonts that are available that should be Tableau safe. So that's a good one to learn from the Flurridge twins. They also talked a little bit about the custom color palettes, and I think the adjustments you can make to that preferences file. Um, they specifically mentioned like if you create a new color palette within there but don't give it a name, what happens to that? Well, when you open up Tableau again, apparently it becomes your default color palette, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. Maybe that's good, maybe that's not. Maybe you should check out their presentation so you can learn a little bit more about that feature. And then I think there's also a conversation in their presentation about formatting and the usage of dotted lines. So I'm not sure which version of Tableau was the first to release like the dotted lines that you can apply on your visualization, but the Flurridge twins have some good tips about working with that dotted line and getting the formatting right on your visualizations. So I think that's really a great one to check out. And then the last one I think I'm going to recommend for now is custom themes. There's a whole presentation about custom themes, which I think is only available starting in 2025.1. So maybe not available to everybody yet, depending on which version you're working in. But formatting is important, but sometimes kind of tedious. One of the things that is now available is the ability to take like your workbook and take all your customizations. Well, probably not everything, but there's a Tableau page that explains all the things that will get included in this. But you can export the theme with a lot of your formatting applied to like a JSON file, and then you can go to like a second workbook and just import that JSON file, to bring in your theme, so you don't have to go through like that second workbook and click all the different settings and reapply the formatting. It's a much it's a way to work a lot more efficiently if you're particular about formatting and you need to make sure things are applied consistently across like your different workbooks. I think with that, I have a lot more to say, but we're definitely running out of time here. So I think I'll turn it back over so maybe you can wrap up the meeting and do all the other fun things that happen towards the end of these meetings.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, this was great. I learned a lot. And I think just to echo a point, yeah, formatting when you first start in Tableau and you're like, okay, let me change some fonts and colors, it can be really daunting. Like even just finding the setting can be difficult. But I think Tableau is starting to make some changes, maybe a little slower than some of us would like, to make it a little easier. These things like custom themes, copy paste, which has been in there for a while, but a lot of people just don't know about it. So I am pleased to see that they are doing that. So this was great, Tab. Thank you so much. Bringing all this together, make more sense for us. And like I said, I think formatting is one of those things that if you're just starting out or you've been using Tableau for a while, it's so relevant, and it really is important too. You alluded to earlier about just making things a little easier to read or view, whether it be the arrows and the custom number formatting, um, different color options and that sort of thing. Absolutely fantastic. And just for everybody, I'll get with Tab to get those notes and those resources and links, and we'll share that out when the recording of this is available. So, yeah, we have a couple of minutes left. Wanted to do our swag giveaway for those of you who are here. So don't leave quite yet. You might win some swag. Let me share my other tab really quick. If I can find it. All right, here we go. So this should be everyone that checked in today. We'll go ahead and let's do 2 giveaways today. And I'm going to write down the names. All right. Here's the important thing. The back end of the Tableau User Group system does not give me your email. That considers that private information. So please reach out to me in Slack or cgivens@feedingthegulfcoast.org and say, hey, I won, and so I can get you your swag if you want it. If you don't want it, then I'll give it to somebody else. Tableau is gracious enough to provide us some swag. So there's our second winner. Congrats, Yaya. Again, please reach out to me if you want your swag. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much again, Tab. This was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll get those links out to everybody, and you can start having fun with formatting. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.